All right. Hi, Professor Farg. My name is Josh Jeslow, and I'm going to demo the final project, project option 2, which was the inverted indices. So the first thing I'm going to do is run the commands on Mac to run the Docker build of this project on Xterm. So first I have to run this command just to set this IP variable. Then I have to do xhost plus this IP that actually adds the port or something, allows it to actually throw up the window. And then I can actually run the Docker command. Unfortunately, it kind of wraps over here, but hopefully you can see that. So here is the program. Take this off to the side. So I'm going to start off by choosing files. So this actually opens a file viewer. I have all the files here in data. So for the first example, I'm actually just going to do just these 5 files, and I'll show with all the files later. So just all the King Henry files. I'll construct inverted indices. So this actually tells me my random integer, so I just use a random integer to differentiate between the output files, so I don't have to go deleting the output folder every time. And so I can actually, if I need to debug something, I have the random number on the end in case I need to. So it's running, and it just will ping me back every half a second to let me know what's going on. So while that's running, I actually wanted to go through and show you the way I set up my GUI here, because I'm kind of proud of that. So I'm just going to keep this off to the side. I'll come back to that in a minute. So here is my view model. I actually really kind of took some of the skills that I learned in iOS development, especially in my internship, since the beginning of the summer, and I've put them into creating the GUI here. So this is actually, I'm using the model view model architecture or a design pattern, so that's MVVM. And so this is actually the view model, so it takes care of all of the functions to construct everything, all of the delegation comes back here, and it handles all of the coordination, everything for the whole project. And so then my other files, like my search term results, I create them here. When they have to run something, they'll actually call the view model function from there. And it'll go back to the view model, run something, and if it needs to, it'll call back to this file and display if it needs to update something. So I'm particularly proud of that. I've definitely come a long way in designing GUIs. So anyway, come back to the program here. So where did that go? Here it is. So this actually finished successfully. Engine was loaded. I constructed the inverted indices. So now I'm going to search for term. So I'm going to use the word king. As you can tell, I've done this before. So that won't take nearly as long, but it'll take about 30 seconds, I think. But we'll know actually when we get to the screen exactly how long it took. So that's running. It does the same thing where it just pings it repeatedly. I just like knowing. I didn't really want to do it every 5 seconds or every 10 seconds. I just like knowing when it's ready. So it does that. But yeah, just gonna wait a minute for it to load. All right. So here are the results. So it took about 35 seconds. I have the doc IDs here. So for the doc IDs, I actually, as I know you kind of said we could just kind of do our own thing. And since I didn't actually put a doc ID on any of the documents on the cloud, I actually just ran a hash over the name. So at least every file name will generate a unique number. So these will all be unique. unless there's a collision, which is unlikely to happen. So at least that keeps it in line with what the doc ID is supposed to do. As you said, we can just keep everything in a flat folder. We don't have to have the whole folder structure, so it just says input for everything because that's where all my files are on the cloud. Here's a doc name for everything and the frequencies. And so actually I can prove something that all the data is correct and consistent by showing you the total. I already did this, but I'll run through this again. So if I do 394 plus 239 plus 136 plus 130 plus 128, we'll get 1027. So if my inverted indices were constructed correctly and the word king is within the top whatever I choose, it should display 1027 for it. So back here, I'm going to go back to search, do top n. Let's do top 30 just so I can show you a bunch of words. So again, this will run again, take about a similar amount of time. And yeah, so yeah, I guess while we're waiting, this project was difficult at times. I certainly struggled with some parts, but I'm really happy that I did it in the end because I've learned a lot of things about not just how to make better GUIs in Java, I have more experience, but also how to run jars on the cloud, how to run them from programs here, how to get the results back, and it's really helped me figure out not just how to do stuff, but how to get into the right context. All right, so all the terms have shown up. I can actually have a scrollable list here. And so king here, 1027. So we know that at least is consistent that the inverted indices have indeed worked correctly. My top and function has worked correctly. So I have omitted about 10 words using a stop words list. So I can pull that up here. So these are just the top 10 words, the top 10 most frequent words in the English language. So the rest of these do not have these stop words in the results. Yeah, there's still some common words here, but let's see some more interesting words. Lord, thee, a lot of these here. Anyway, I'm going to stop this and run it again. I just want to show you again, but using all the files. So open this up again. So this time I'll do all the files, whole bunch of files. So let me just double check while that's running, make sure I've covered everything. Code walkthrough while you're explaining your code changes. I guess I could just talk a bit more about my code. So yeah, I used Java Window Builder here. So that made it really straightforward to create these. It took a bit of time to get used to the first one, but after I made the first one of these screens, the rest became easier. And then it just took some more Googling to figure out how to set the text, how to set the table text, things like that. But I have a whole bunch of these things. So yeah, definitely didn't think it would be this extensive when I started, but I'm glad that I've been able to make good working code. And I've really tried to clean up my code a lot and make things as concise as they can be within reason. Let's check back in. Still running. Oh, there it is. All right, so let's just do top 50 terms. all of these files. I'm actually really curious. I've run the program a bunch of times with different groups of inputs, but I haven't actually run it with every file before. So I guess we're seeing this together. So just to reiterate, if it wasn't clear, I did this on my own. I worked on this all on my own. It took me like a month. And yeah, I thought the timing, I'm glad I started early. At least getting the GUI out of the way was, that was like the week or two of work. Although, and then I had to wait a little bit before we actually got to the point in class where we started learning about top end, doing the MapReduce homework. But once we did that, that helped me design the jars that would be run by this program. So I'm definitely glad we had that homework, for sure. So these are the top 50 terms. He, 35,000 times. Oh my goodness. Anything interesting here? I did sort these, if you haven't noticed yet. I've sorted these by frequency from the most to the least. Yeah, just a lot of common words here. But like I said, I had that stop word list. So the top 10 most common words have been omitted. I guess, what should we search for? Let's do where. Should be interesting. So yeah, I guess all I have left to do, I have to finish recording this video, which should be done momentarily. I just have to do one last push to GitHub. I think I just have to push my image to Docker Hub and upload the canvas and send you an email. So yeah, as I mentioned in class, thank you for being our teacher. I really enjoyed this class. I took it on a recommendation from my friends who said it was a great class and you were a very good teacher, and that recommendation has definitely held up. So yeah. So yeah, here are the all of the times that or all of the files that have the word where. Let me make this a little bit bigger so we can see everything. So yeah, it's not super easy to verify, but these should all be unique doc IDs. Like I said before, they're all in the same folder. Yeah, I guess where just isn't used a lot. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's it. I hope I've covered everything. Yeah, I did top end, word search, 2 different sets of things. Whenever I don't know exactly what you meant by the code walkthrough, but I guess I can go a little bit more in depth here, since I'm not just waiting for it to finish. So here's my main function. No, let me close this. I don't know, Eclipse does this sometimes and just screws up all of the opening and closing, like the folding and unfolding. So I'm just going to close that and open it up again. Here we go. So I have my main function here, just creates it, itself basically. It calls the view model and just says to run the frame. So that basically just opens up the window and actually loads in the first panel. And then I have the panel construction here, so it just makes it easier to load everything in. And then I have these actually as variables, so I don't actually have to initialize them. I don't have to initialize them once, and then I can just jump between them. And actually, where I have a function somewhere that jumps, here we go. So change view. So just by replacing the content pane with a different panel, and just repainting, revalidating, super easy to switch between them. So that's made things really nice and concise. I don't have to hard code much the jumps between all of the files. It's nice and concise. Let's see. So those are all construction. I have, like I said before, I have these delegation functions that handle all of the logic for running everything, so I can store all my data here. I don't have to store any of the stuff in the actual view files, so it makes those clean and easy to read. So basically, it just opens up a chooser, gets all the file names, then basically sets them to the text box in Load Engine panel. When I click the Construct Indices button, it takes in the list of files, and just to make sure it wouldn't be all weird, I replaced it's separated by new line characters, and I just replaced that with commas, just because I wasn't sure how new lines would be handled when you were giving inputs to a Java program. So I just decided to use commas instead. It lets me so I'm not actually, to be clear, I'm not actually uploading any files. You said we could just select them, so basically I'm just sending my program a list of all the files, and then actually I can show you here. So it takes gets the files list here, it splits it up into an array, and then it will determine the current file name and file path of whatever file it's working on, and then if the current file is not in the whitelist, basically we're just going to return we don't want to map anything. If it is in the whitelist, then we'll go and do the whole mapping here. Here's where I filter out stop words, otherwise just write it to context and we're done. So it is a bit inefficient, but I believe you were fine with this way, and it works. It doesn't take terribly long, so yeah. And then, where was I? Wrong file. So then it does that. It sets up the input and output directories. It sets them the argument list array. Creates the credentials, and I have these as variables up at the top because I only need to do this once. I don't have to re-get them when I don't need to. Just save a little bit of computing power. So I just create these once, set them, and don't have to worry about it again, because it's always the same credentials for anything I do. Then I have the execute job stuff just in a function down here, and that will run a try catch. It very handily prints out the stack trace if something's wrong. Occasionally I've had stuff go wrong and it didn't print out anything, and I'd actually go onto the jobs list on the cluster and look at it, and even then sometimes it didn't want to print out any information, and so I actually had to go run my file locally. I had to go SSH, I had to go open up the web terminal for my cluster and actually run the thing locally with all the arguments, and then it would print out there. And so that took a few times to really understand what was happening, but so it creates the job, submits it, and then it just pings it again and again until it's finished. Then it will return true or false depending if it's done. So I only want it to actually go to the next page if it succeeded. If it doesn't say done, it'll say error, and that's when I know that there's a problem. And then that's all that needs to happen. Very similar thing for when I handle the search for term, handle the top end. Sets the argument list. I don't need to set the data proc or anything because the cluster is already set as a variable, so I can just execute the job right here. Does all those things again. So as long as it's not false, then it'll continue here. And then this is where I then run the collect results. This is what actually pings the Google storage and gets all of that and returns back to me all the data concatenated together into one object. That's as a string. And so, where are we? Here. And so then I have that result. As long as it's not empty, just in case there was some problem, I will parse it out into an array and just get it ready to send to my top end results. So I construct table data, update the label, and then change view. Same thing for the word, the search for term. If I get here, I just parse it out into an array, use that to construct the table data, update the search term, update the time taken, and then change the view. And yeah, that's basically it. Just besides that is my GUI code, but I think you're more interested in the logic for sending the data, receiving the data, and parsing it. So yeah, from here it just gets set into the table. That's all GUI. So yeah, that's about it for the project. Thank you very much for a great course, and definitely be recommending this to other students. Have a nice day.